So what's the plan here, buddy? Give me something consistent. Do you want her dead or not? Oh, don't worry, bro. It's all a part of Palpatine's plan. So what's the plan here, buddy? Give me something consistent. Do you want her dead or not? Oh, don't worry, bro. It's all a part of Palpatine's plan.
Oh, don't worry, bro. It's all a part of Palpatine's plan.
What orders from Mordor, my lord? What does the High command?
We have work to do.
I couldn't believe some of the things they wrote about the prequels, you know? I mean, but really, beyond, I didn't like it. You ruined my childhood, and I'm still angry about the way they treated Jake Lloyd. He was only 10 years old, that boy, and he did exactly what George wanted him to do. Believe me, I understand clunky dialogue. I almost got hornswoggled in that documentary where they weren't calling it The People versus George Lucas at the time, but I could tell from the questions they were asking me, it was an open invitation to trash George.
George Lucas raped our childhood. 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 George Lucas raped our childhood.
And I have issues with George, but I love that man.
You go to make a movie and all you do is get criticized, and people try to make decisions about what you're going to do before you do it. You know, it's not much fun, and you can't experiment. You can't do anything. You have to do it a certain way. I don't like that. I never did. I started out in experimental films, and I want to go back to experimental films. But of course, nobody wants to see experimental films.
The main thing is to protect these characters. Make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them.
I'm curious that the Force doesn't get muddled into a bunch of garbly-gook.
Can I just say, though, a lot of times I would say to Ryan, we got to think about the fans. And he said, no, we got to think about the story, and we got to think about our movie. Which
Welcome back to Revenge of the Prequels, everyone. This is part 3 of my response to Cosmonaut Variety Hour. But before we begin, you must know that Revenge of the Prequels is an ongoing response series regarding all content creators who have exhibited terrible arguments towards the Star Wars prequels, and have been doing so for many years. There's currently 11 other videos that respond to several content creators, and Cosmonaut is simply the most recent name on the list, so don't think this is a personal attack on him. It's really not. I do have some not very nice things to say about him, but don't confuse my insults with my arguments. I don't want to repeat myself too much. I made these disclaimers in several other videos, so once this video has finished, please go back and watch from episode 1 onwards, so you'll understand my reasoning behind making the series, my true intentions, and how my argumentation has progressed with time as more and more facts have come to light through my own research and the assistance of my community. So there's a lot to be gained from watching the series from start to finish, and I can almost guarantee you that you'll find out something new regarding the prequels by watching these videos, which is more than I can say for a lot of the videos spat out by the regurgitating Plinkett wannabes that fester this website. Now, in addition to that, regarding my last video, there is something I need to bring up. So for those of you who don't know, this is essentially a death sentence for any video on YouTube. It kills their revenue potential, and as a result, the YouTube algorithm kills the video's momentum dead. As you can see, it's been manually confirmed unsuitable for most advertisers. And the previous video, which I as the creator will say is even more unsuitable for advertisers, was manually approved. There was no explanation, no follow-up, no timestamp, no appeal process, and once more, this was the only Revenge of the Prequels video that has been demonetized up till now. I have no idea what triggered the individual to manually fuck me over, but I can only assume he had the mental fragility of an oversensitive child. So you at YouTube, likely reviewing this video right now to be monetized because you demonetize just about everything without cause. Don't be a bitch, man up, take a joke, and leave my shit alone. And while you're at it, take that stupid yellow $sign off my video. Now, I can't predict how this video and future videos will be handled by YouTube's retarded management. This is completely unpredictable, and you could ask me to change the way I make these videos, but that would also compromise their identity as a series, and I'm simply not going to do it. So if you'd like to support my work, feel free to signal boost these videos whichever way you see fit, and as an extra middle finger to the prequel hate circle jerk on the internet, you can get your official Revenge of the Prequels merchandise from the newly designed online merchandise store for the channel, right now. Feel free to stick it to them in style. Just another means if you'd like to support the channel. Right, sorry for the delay, I've said my piece, now let's get back to Cosmonaut and see what our beloved idiot has to say about Attack of the Clones. Shall we?
Star Wars Episode 2 is basically as bad as The Phantom Menace.
Which, based on your other arguments, likely means that the film is fucking great.
I tried pretty hard to figure out which one of these movies is worse, and I'm having a really hard time figuring that out right now. But I think if you held a gun up to my head and made me answer, I'd probably say that this one is marginally better.
Oh, okay, I'll bite. Do tell.
The Phantom Menace is bad because it's boring and it doesn't really feel like a real movie, but technically once you figure out the story, it is sort of comprehensible.
Oh, I didn't realize you were the arbiter of telling us what does and does not feel like a movie, despite the product in question being feature-length, on camera, and calling itself a fucking movie. And you attribute this in large part to not being able to comprehend a script designed for 12-year-olds. Right.
Then you compare this to Attack of the Clones, where structurally it feels like more of a real movie. The characters have traits, there's a few cute interactions, but nothing the characters do make any sense, and the story is absolute nonsense.
Again, this film was designed to be understood by bloody 12-year-olds, you jackass. Admittedly, some of the finer details can be a bit hazy, but the main plot is comprehensible. I was 8 when I first saw this movie, and I understood the general plot just fine, as did the majority of us who actually watched the movie.
But for what it's worth, this movie is way more entertaining to watch because it is just a hot mess. It's probably the worst plot in the entire Star Wars saga.
Well, I disagree vehemently with that, but let's see where he goes first.
To the point where I could spend this whole review just explaining the story and you would fully understand what I mean. So that's exactly what we're gonna do.
Oh joy, I can't wait.
So the movie starts off and tells us this.
There is unrest in the Galactic Senate. Several thousand solar systems have declared their intentions to leave the Republic.
Okay, but joking aside, this is supposed to be the main driving force for the plot.
Please don't use the boring argument as your crutch against the politics in these movies. It has about as much weight as a feather in outer space.
These separatists don't want to be part of the Republic, but why not? Well, I hope you are prepared to die with that question in your mind because this movie is not interested in telling us. Maybe go read one of the books or something.
But Cosmonaut, don't you find the politics boring? Didn't you just outline that the political squabble puts you to sleep and makes the plot overly complicated? Not to mention you uttered this juicy little gem earlier in this very video.
Star Wars should be simple. Star Wars should be simple.
Star Wars should be simple.
So what does it matter why they want to leave the Republic? They just do. Isn't that simple enough for you? Why was the Empire bad? Yes, sure, they killed people when they needed to show their power and strength to the galaxy, but prior to the destruction of Alderaan and the killing of Uncle Owen and Aunt Peru while searching for fugitive droids, mind you, they really hadn't been shown to be affecting the galaxy in any negative way. Why was living under an empire so bad? For all we know, it kept order and safety for the masses. And for all we know, an empire was extremely prosperous for many, many people in the galaxy, so why was it so terrible?
The Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society.
Okay, look. We know the Empire is terrible, due to the progression of the original trilogy and reinforced by the prequels themselves. The point I'm trying to make here is that the Empire is extreme and commits terrible acts, but we are only ever told they are terrible to the galaxy. We don't actually see their impact on the galaxy from an economical standpoint. Not to get too off topic here, but the Hunger Games movies, as much as I'd hate to say it, did a great job at showing why the government in power needed to be overthrown due to the poverty of the other districts and the absurd wealth of the capital territory. The Empire in Star Wars A New Hope, and to be honest, the original trilogy aren't shown to have an evil impact on the galaxy as a whole, outside of the evil acts they commit that aren't without reason. The reasons in question aren't justified, of course, but why they commit evil acts has some logical gain behind them for their motivation. The reasons why they commit evil acts stems beyond the "it's just because we're evil" trope that the First Order was cursed with. The Empire were the bad guys, and we knew it, but we were mostly just told they were the evil Empire. There was still plenty to be expanded upon, and plenty of questions we all had regarding the Empire. But as you said,
Star Wars should be simple.
But when it comes to the prequels, you seem to take issue with a lot of these, according to you, unexplained plot threads. Here's a huge problem I have with the people who try to shit on the prequels. They'll rag on and on about the politics being boring and Star Wars should be simple, blah blah blah, while simultaneously seeming to take issue with every minuscule plot detail possible, despite either not paying attention or having seemingly no interest in what the story is trying to tell. Because again, these movies were designed to be understood by 12-year-olds, and also, mind you, they give the original trilogy a pass for plenty of unanswered questions regarding the Empire, for example. So if Star Wars should be simple, why do you want to know why the Republic is separating anyway? And don't tell me for one fucking second that if they answered your request and actually explained it word for fucking word, that you wouldn't spin the argument into another negative about the movie being even more, in your words, boring for having too much exposition. I've said it numerous times, the argumentation against the prequels from people like Cosmonaut heavily conflicts with itself, which is why I find it very hard to take seriously, and that's beside the fact of a large chunk of the arguments in question being false to begin with. But you know what? I'll explain your grievance to you right now. Why is the Republic separating? Well, the reasons why are exhibited quite extensively in the Star Wars movie you think is a complete failure, and we should apparently skip. Star Wars The Phantom Menace. The bureaucratic hindrance of the Republic to take action against the Trade Federation turned a simple trade dispute into the martial occupation of a city and the enslaving of a planet, which was orchestrated by Darth Sidious, who was vying for the Chancellor's position of highest power in the Republic in the first place. Once Amidala pleaded with the Senate, and not to mention the description in the opening crawl, it was shown that the bureaucratic system of the Republic was borderline broken. After the Battle of Naboo, the Viceroy of the Trade Federation was put on numerous trials by the Senate, despite clearly being guilty.
It's outrageous that after 4 trials in the Supreme Court, Newt Gunray is still the Viceroy of the Trade Federation. I fear the Senate is powerless to resolve this crisis.
And still remained in power, further highlighting the corruption in government and the bureaucratic nonsense of the Republic, which again was orchestrated by Sidious, who is now the Supreme Chancellor, who still had something to gain from Viceroy Gunray being in power. The Viceroy was then approached by Count Dooku, who is also under the influence of Sidious, who is the mastermind, don't forget. And as the Attack of the Clones opening crawl explains, Count Dooku is the leader of the separatist movement due to always being unsatisfied with the Republic and the Senate.
Don't be so sure, my young Jedi. You forget that he was once my apprentice, just as you were once his. He knew all about the corruption in the Senate, but he would never have gone along with it if he had learned the truth as I have.
And rallied the Viceroy to his cause, including his resources and droid armies, which Attack of the Clones goes on to explain as the film progresses. In a nutshell, the separatist parties are unsatisfied with how the Republic has handled their grievances in the past, including the insufficient tax on trade routes due to the corporate greed of the Trade Federation, which was just one such grievance in the galaxy full of unsatisfied individuals. This also lends to Senator Amidala's character and how strong her ideals for democracy are, given how her cause for justice due to the occupation of her planet fell on deaf ears in the Senate. And afterwards, because the Viceroy was still not removed from power, she probably has the most justifiable cause to join the separatist movement, and yet she is the strongest advocate to keep democracy and the way of the Republic alive without starting a galactic war. So yeah, we never got an exposition dump telling us why the Separatists are leaving the Republic, but the previous film and the progression of this film shows us why the Separatists are disgruntled with the Republic, and once you take 5 seconds to connect the dots, it becomes clear. Sorry, that took a while. Let's roll on.
Alright, so the rest of the crawl tells us that the Jedi are overwhelmed by the Separatists. But overwhelmed how? The Separatists aren't hurting anybody. There aren't any battle droid attacks at this point. The first thing the Jedi say in this movie is that Dooku and the Separatists aren't violent and they just have different political leanings.
Okay, you're kind of missing the point. The galaxy is a big place. Thousands of star systems, in fact, are in the separatist movement alone. And to our knowledge, according to the films and no external media, there is one Jedi Council and one Jedi Temple, meaning there is several hundred to several thousand active Jedi Knights at the very most. Mace Windu outlines that there aren't enough Jedi to protect the Republic. They are keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
If they do break away,
I will not let this republic that has stood for 1,000 years be split in two. My negotiations will not fail.
If they do, you must realize there aren't enough Jedi to protect the Republic. We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
Which means they are spread very thin right now, trying to maintain peace. And the separatist movement is making this even harder with more and more disputes happening on various planets. It's not outright saying that the separatists are attacking them as of yet, but this movement is causing problems on a galactic scale. Hell, Windu goes on to say Obi-Wan just returned from a simple border dispute.
That's possible. He's just returned from a border dispute on Ancion.
And not to mention, in The Phantom Menace, the taxation of trade routes was in dispute, and the Trade Federation weren't directly attacking the Republic or the Jedi, and didn't attack Naboo until Sidious gave the green light. It says the separatist movement has made it difficult for the Jedi to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. It's a vague description that can mean a number of situations and conflicts, but what is made very clear is that they are not as of yet at war. What Windu says is if they do go to war, it would be catastrophic for the Republic and the Jedi, which is why the Military Creation Act is so important. Creating a Republic military would signify to the Separatists that they are willing to go to war over this.
Do you see any way through negotiations to bring the Separatists back into the Republic?
Not if they feel threatened.
And Amidala is strongly opposing this because she doesn't want a war.
So why are the Jedi overwhelmed? Why do we need to create an army? What do you mean by civil unrest? Well, I hope you are prepared to die with these questions in your head, because this movie has no interest in telling you why any of these things are happening.
Well, first of all, as I've just outlined, you're wrong. And secondly, it's not that you'd even remotely give a shit if it did, so stop playing it up like it's a deal breaker for you. Star Wars should be simple, remember?
But whatever, that shit doesn't matter. We just need Padme in the city so she can get blown up.
What? No, you're wrong. How wrong can you be? How does this video have 53,000 likes? Did you even watch the movie? It's almost like you're intentionally excluding nuance to... Oh, right.
So in this movie, Palpatine is trying to kill Padme. But why? Well, it's because Padme is here to vote against creating a military force for the Republic.
First of all, your answer contradicted your own argument seconds ago.
But whatever, that shit doesn't matter. We just need Padme in the city so she can get blown up.
A few moments later.
Well, it's because Padme is here to vote against creating a military force for the Republic.
Secondly, no, actually, Palpatine doesn't want Padme dead at all, or at least right now. As a matter of fact, it's the Trade Federation Viceroy who has the hit out on Padme.
What about the senator from Naboo? Is she dead yet? I am not signing your treaty until I have her head on my desk.
As it is clear that Viceroy Gunray is behind the assassination attempts on Senator Amidala.
As part of his deal with Dooku, who has hired Jango Fett's bounty hunter syndicate to kill her. Now, Dooku and Jango Fett is another story, but Palpatine doesn't want Padme dead, that much is clear. The first assassination attempt was on Padme's decoy. Palpatine knew about the decoy, having extensive knowledge of Naboo's customs, having grown up there, not to mention his interactions with Padme in The Phantom Menace. If the Jedi could figure out that she was using a decoy, I'm pretty sure Palpatine could as well. So Palpatine knew that they would hit the wrong target on their first try. However, this assassination attempt was enough cause for the Jedi to take her under their protection, which was Palpatine's suggestion, and in addition to that, he suggests Obi-Wan Kenobi, a familiar face, as well as Anakin.
Master Jedi, may I suggest the Senator be placed under the protection of your graces?
Chancellor, if I may comment, I do not believe
the situation is that serious. No, but I do, Senator. Perhaps someone you're familiar with. An old friend, like Master Kenobi.
Who, from two perspectives, if you've already seen the original trilogy, we know Anakin becomes Palpatine's disciple and that he's grooming him, and if you haven't seen the original trilogy, you still see that Palpatine has taken an interest in Anakin, and all of these threads will be tied up in Revenge of the Sith anyway. Another reason I know Palpatine didn't want Padme dead is because he simply orders her to go home, knowing she'd leave Jar Jar behind, who he could manipulate into giving Palpatine emergency powers.
As the leader of the opposition, it will be very difficult to get Senator Amidala to leave the capital.
Anakin, go to the Senate and ask Chancellor Palpatine to speak with her about this matter.
I will talk with her. Senator Amidala will not refuse an executive order. I know her well enough to assure you of that.
These emergency powers would be used to legalize the clone army that was created ahead of time under the orders of Palpatine himself, and this motion would be pitched on Queen Amidala's behalf, which would carry heavily with the Senate, since Amidala was the strongest voice against this happening in the first place. Not to mention Obi-Wan's investigation led him to Kamino, and then Geonosis, which unveiled the droid army to the Jedi and the leading voices against the Military Creation Act. Senator Organa, for example, being among them, which prompted this emergency action to take place. All of this while Padme was out of the way with Anakin, which Palpatine clearly orchestrated from the beginning based on the actions he took. Obi-Wan's investigation was also likely orchestrated by Palpatine himself, since he needed to indirectly alert the public of the droid army and the clones, so Jar Jar could make his proposal. The second assassination attempt serves another purpose as well. It allows Palpatine to test Anakin's skills, and allows Anakin to showcase them publicly to the Jedi Council, which will lead to Anakin and Obi-Wan's separate assignments once they found the breadcrumb trail. I doubt Palpatine would have suggested Anakin and Obi-Wan be assigned to protect Senator Amidala otherwise, unless he was absolutely sure they would uncover a clue to Kamino, which would then lead them to Geonosis, and in addition to that, he knew they would assign Anakin to Padme, not just because of his skills.
The Council is confident in its decision, Obi-Wan.
The boy has exceptional skills.
But because, as stated before, the Jedi are spread thin as it is, and the only reason why Padme is under Jedi protection in the first place is because of Palpatine's suggestion. Not to mention who has a better chance and is wiser and more capable to carry out an independent investigation. It wouldn't be Anakin, it would be Obi-Wan, his master. Now, this plan does have a few depending factors, and some of it does rely on chance, which could affect the outcome. But these moving pieces have been placed and given sufficient thought by Palpatine. This isn't just complete and utter contrivance. So the answer before you go on your incessant bitching rant is no, Palpatine did not want Padme dead while she was on Coruscant.
And I guess Palpatine doesn't really want that because he has his own army and he wants to control it. But the assassination attempts just stop about a third of the way through the movie. I guess it's so that Anakin and her can hang out more?
Well, yes, first off, Jango is on the run and can't exactly manage another assassination attempt for a while. Second of all, Anakin and Padme left disguised as refugees. Thirdly, as we have just seen, Palpatine does not want Anakin killed. He's put the two of them together for a reason. He knows about Anakin's predisposition for attachment to Padme, and is using that to his own advantage. Because, as I just said, he is grooming him.
But then he still has Padme thrown into an arena to be eaten by Pokemon. So what's the plan here, buddy? Give me something consistent. Do you want—
I'm sorry, Cosmonaut, but you don't have any right to demand consistency from anybody. Not to mention, it wasn't Palpatine who threw Anakin and Padme to their deaths. Padme and Anakin weren't even supposed to be there.
Anakin, we will deal with Count Dooku. The most important thing for you is to stay where you are. Protect the Senator at all costs. That is your first priority.
And it was the Geonosians who had the public executions. They were caught and charged with espionage on their planet. Granted, this takes place in a deleted scene, so we don't actually see the charges laid, and I won't count them as part of my argument. But again, Padme made the decision to help Obi-Wan, not Anakin.
But you heard Master Windu. He gave me strict orders to stay here.
He gave you strict orders to protect me. And I'm going to help Obi-Wan. If you plan to protect me, you'll just have to come along.
Palpatine does not want them dead, as we know. Or at least he doesn't want Anakin dead. And they were sent to the same pit for public execution as Obi-Wan, who was caught spying there as well. The public execution sentence was a Geonosian custom. That was not Palpatine's decision.
Her dead or not. Oh, don't worry, bro. It's all a part of Palpatine's plan.
Actually, no. Anakin being on Geonosis was not part of the plan, as I just explained.
Can I just say that I fucking hate this way of writing? Oh, let's make it so our villain can predict the future. So then when anything happens that contradicts information we're given, we can just say, oh, it's fine, he knew it was gonna happen, see? Oh, he killed the Jedi and took over the galaxy. All according to plan.
Seriously, why do you have the most punchable personality on the internet? You got some fucking nerve to praise a movie driven entirely by convenience and this clusterfuck before having an issue with the writing in the prequels.
But if you line it up piece by piece, it's the biggest fucking joke in the whole series.
You make me happy.
Here is Palpatine's entire timeline. First, he supports the Trade Federation so he can control space trade.
No, Palpatine doesn't give two shits about space trade. He's rusing them to accomplish his own gains in the Senate. They are a means to an end, simple as that.
However, the Jedi shut down the Federation, so he starts a new organization of planets that don't like the Republic.
Actually, no, the Trade Federation is still alive and kicking. They even have the same guy in charge because the Senate is corrupt as fuck and Palpatine is at the helm. Dooku has rallied the separatists under Palpatine's orders, and Dooku has his own motivations as an idealist himself.
At the same time, he's building a secret army, so now he has two armies, an army of clones and an army of robots.
Yes, because he's trying to use a galactic civil war to take power for himself, and also to destroy the Jedi and take control of the galaxy once the time is right.
Oh, but Padme is going to make things difficult, so he has to kill her.
No, he just wants her out of the way.
But he messes up and doesn't kill her.
No, he took the necessary precautions so that she almost certainly would not die. That's why he insisted on hiring the Jedi, and Anakin and Obi-Wan specifically.
But that's okay. He actually wants Anakin to get close to her and fall in love, but then he tries to have her killed anyway, right after that. You're really lucky that none of these Pokemon ate her, because then Anakin would just be a good guy forever.
Yes, he wanted Anakin to re-establish his attachment to Padme, and no, Palpatine didn't have anything to do with Padme in the execution pit. They weren't even supposed to be there.
And your plan wouldn't work. So anyway, it doesn't matter. Padme doesn't matter. He unveils both armies at the same time and he makes them fight each other, secretly. And over the next few years, he orchestrates an entire war between two armies that he secretly funded so that people will democratically vote for him to be king of space.
Yes, after Padme is off Coruscant, and once Palpatine has taken power, she is of no concern to him anymore. The plan was to lead the Jedi into a trap on Geonosis, unveil the droid army and start the Clone Wars. Again, one of the reasons I know the Jedi's arrival was planned was because Dooku doesn't even flinch when Mace Windu shows up and when the Jedi reveal themselves. Dooku does, however, flinch when Jango Fett gets killed, so I guess the Jedi were part of the plan, but Headless Jango was not. And yeah, Dooku's job was to get the armies prepped, the Separatists aligned, and the war started.
I have good news for you, my lord. The war has begun.
Excellent. Everything is going as planned.
Palpatine did the rest.
So that he can end the war that he started with his two secret armies, and then as king of space, he kills all the Jedi and gets rid of both armies. And then he rules for like 20-ish years, and then Anakin throws him in a hole and he dies. There are so many holes in that plan that I don't even have time to break it all down. It would take an entire video.
It's not a perfect plan, and some of it does weigh on chance, but the way you tried to deconstruct it was laughable.
It would actually be better for the story if you told me he couldn't predict the fucking future, because this plan reads like it's made by someone who can't.
No one with a brain has ever made that argument, but Jedi can see the future through meditation, which has been shown in these movies, Anakin being one and Luke being another. However, whether Sith can see the future is unclear. I think it's possible based on the films and how powerful Palpatine is, but I've never once used it as an argument myself.
So anyway, Obi-Wan and Anakin go to protect Padme, and I love how the first person to talk in this scene is Jar Jar. I also love how he literally stops, looks at the camera, and smiles, as if to say, "That's right, fuckers, I'm not going anywhere." I'd also like to point out that while we now have more scenes of characters actually having heart-to-heart conversations, they're all awful because they're written in the most unnatural way. For the most part, this movie has some pretty good actors, and they have no way to make this awful dialogue sound natural.
I don't know why I keep dreaming about her. Dreams pass in time. I'd much rather dream about Padme.
What the fuck?
Around her.
Yeah, I like how the only way you guys can make this look retarded is by cutting out all of the necessary context for the characters, their lines, and the current circumstances. Don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for all of the dialogue, because I and many others don't buy the bullshit of, hey, see, this one line is out of place here, so ha ha ha, the movie's dialogue sucks. Because I can do that just as well with the original trilogy, and every single one of the Star Wars movies, just to be clear. Now, in regards to the scene you used, Anakin is having nightmares about his mother and Obi-Wan is trying to settle him down, but he isn't really helping. Anakin says, I'd much rather dream about Padme, because he's obviously infatuated with her, but this isn't planet Earth, and this isn't meant to come across in a perverted way. He's dreamed about Padme before. He even tells her straight to her face at one point.
I've changed so much.
You haven't changed a bit. You're exactly the way I remember you in my dreams.
So if he's had these dreams as a child moving into adulthood, I'm fairly certain they're of a more wholesome nature. Not to mention the reason why Anakin talks this way is because he doesn't know how to deal with his feelings and he's had no proper grooming for emotional and romantic interaction. I have no doubt that his openness is part of what attracts Padme to him, since she spent most of her life in politics where people are anything but open about how they really feel. And once more, Padme knows Anakin is being wholesome and not vulgar when he makes these remarks, because she is the only one who knows where he came from, what he was like back then as a child and what he is like now. Anakin's open remarks to her doesn't come so much with an agenda, but from a more innocent place, even though he does have romantic feelings for her. That much is clear. And not to mention, when Anakin says he's dreaming about Padme to Obi-Wan, who else is he meant to confide in regarding his feelings? If he can't confide in his own master, then who? Obi-Wan is absolutely the person he would come to with these kinds of problems. Just so happens that Obi-Wan is not very good at dealing with them. Eventually, he starts to confide in Palpatine, but that's a discussion for a bit later.
So Padme, the woman who just had an assassination attempt less than a day ago, sleeps in her room alone with giant windows with the blinds open. So obviously under these circumstances, she's basically begging to be assassinated.
Yes, I've heard this argument before, and this is explained, by the way.
You're using her as bait. It was her idea.
Ill-advised, but Padme did say she wanted answers, so she volunteered to make it easy enough for the assassins to try their luck, which I'm sure she wouldn't have done if she wasn't under Jedi protection.
And the following scene is probably the funniest shit in the whole movie. So this little probe droid sends in little poison bugs to kill Padme, but our heroes catch it right in the nick of time. And then Obi-Wan fucking jumps out the window. What is his plan? What's his endgame here?
Yeah, he jumps out the window to grab a probe droid which will lead him to Padme's would-be assassin. It's not the first time we've seen Obi-Wan jump straight into battle. He did this during the Darth Maul fight as well, and he does this later in Revenge of the Sith. Now, there is a valid argument of why didn't you just use the Force to prevent the droid from escaping? Maybe they could have found a clue to the bounty hunters that way, though I doubt Obi-Wan would have jumped out the window if that was possible. But sometimes the simplest answer is the correct one. Obi-Wan jumping out the window was a knee-jerk reaction to tracking the escaping probe droid, and leading himself to the assassin so he could make an arrest. George Lucas has said numerous times he wanted to portray Obi-Wan and Anakin's adventures in Attack of the Clones like it was just another day for them. The way they banter back and forth about Anakin's repeated recklessness and what Obi-Wan has told him time and time again what to do and what not to do. Not to mention that when Anakin picks up Obi-Wan after the bounty hunter shoots the droid in his hands, which causes him to fall to his supposed death.
What took us so long? Oh, you know, Master. I couldn't find a speeder that I really liked.
Meaning he knew jumping out of the window wasn't suicide and that he was expecting for Anakin to rescue him sooner or later. It was just a matter of him catching up.
And why is he the one who jumped out the window? Anakin just got done talking about how much he loves Padme and how he's obsessed with her. So I'd almost accept this if Anakin was the one who jumped out the window. Isn't he supposed to be the brash, headstrong apprentice who acts without thinking? But then the worst part is that later, Obi-Wan gets mad at Anakin for doing the same thing. He has no right to get upset when Anakin jumps out of the fucking car. He's like, oh, my apprentice is so headstrong and stupid and he acts without thinking. Bro, 2 minutes ago, you jumped out the window to grab a tiny robot. You are lucky to be alive.
Well, judging from the scene, Anakin couldn't jump out the window in time. He was the one dicing the poisonous worms on Padme's bed. Obi-Wan was the first to notice the droid through the window blinds, so he, being headstrong and reckless himself, jumped out the window to prevent the droid from escaping. You do, however, bring up an interesting point, saying that Obi-Wan has no right to judge Anakin's recklessness when he jumps out of the car to apparent nothingness. And I'm actually inclined to agree. I honestly think this is a flaw with Obi-Wan as a character. A lack of self-awareness. He's shown to be hypocritical several times throughout the prequels.
Hello there. Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
And Obi-Wan being a hypocrite is simply a part of the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Obi-Wan is more than willing to criticize Anakin for his faults, but doesn't realize that he shares the same flaws. Whereas Anakin, of course, looking from the outside in, does recognize this. The difference between the two, though, is that Obi-Wan has more wisdom, and tends to think the situation through like he did with the probe droid, whereas Anakin does not think things through.
You will be expelled from the Jedi Order! I can't leave her! Come to your senses! What do you think Padme would do were she in your position?
We'll take him together. You're going slowly on the left.
Taking him now! No, Anakin, no! No!
Always on the move.
Hold your fire! You're not helping here!
I agree. Bad idea.
Matter of fact, the one time we see him balls out reckless in Revenge of the Sith is when Anakin isn't around and he is free to do as he wishes, without being second-guessed by his apprentice. And one could make several arguments as to why Obi-Wan takes on General Grievous on his own, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it.
Patience. Use the Force. Think.
Yeah, the droid was fleeing and Obi-Wan jumped after it. The bounty hunter was running when she had a vehicle and the Jedi duo gave chase in their own speeder. But once Obi-Wan recognized they cornered her at a club, Obi-Wan knew she was lying in wait, hiding, waiting to pounce. So he stopped Anakin from likely getting himself killed, not to mention he didn't even have his lightsaber on him. So of course Obi-Wan made the right call, and he had absolutely every right to.
So anyway, they catch the assassin and they find out that she is a shapeshifter. Now, this is just screenwriting 101.
You sure that's not too advanced for you?
But why is she a shapeshifter? What does this actually bring to the plot of this story? Does she at any point shapeshift in this movie to affect the story? Nope. Even when they're looking for her in the bar, this would be a great opportunity to have her turn into something else to avoid being found. But no, she doesn't do it.
Okay, I think you're misinterpreting shapeshifter with changer. A shapeshifter is like Oolong from Dragon Ball, who can transform into anything he so chooses. Whereas a changer is displayed in Attack of the Clones, seemingly only has one transformation. Now, what does it add to the movie? Well, truthfully, not much. However, what does it take away from the movie? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's simply a small detail that one character possesses as part of their character traits. In actuality, what this added to the movie was an extra layer of tension for me personally as a kid. When Anakin causes her to change first, I was honestly kind of spooked. It was so quick, in fact, that I didn't even know if I saw what I saw. It's only confirmed when Anakin mentions it to Obi-Wan later in the club. When Obi-Wan, a Jedi Master, tells Anakin to be extra careful, and the camera skulks about the cantina and the music rises, I honestly felt considerable tension, as part of it was knowing that the changing assassin could strike from anywhere.
Why did George make her a shapeshifter? The characters bring it up in a way that shows that it might be significant.
And I think she's a changeling. In that case, be extra careful.
But if you go back into this movie and you pretend that she's just a regular person, it doesn't change anything.
Are you done yet with this bullshit? Star Wars should be simple, remember?
These are just the basic rules of writing a story. Now, this scene is funny to me because if you take it and try to figure out exactly what's happening and why it's happening, it becomes hilarious. So I'm gonna have everybody try to follow along with me real quick.
Yep, we are still here, unfortunately.
So Palpatine needs Padme dead, but he doesn't want to do it himself, so he asks Count Dooku to go kill Padme.
No, Palpatine, as discussed before, didn't want Padme dead, as discussed before. He wanted her to feel like her life was in danger, so he indirectly hired the assassins to take her out, withholding vital information that would have enabled them to take her out on the first try, and making the necessary arrangements to ensure they would fail the second time.
But Count Dooku doesn't want to do it himself.
Of course he doesn't. He's not an assassin. He is a well-known political figure and a former Jedi.
I think the Count Dooku was behind it.
He is a political idealist, not a murderer.
You know, milady, Count Dooku was once a Jedi. He couldn't assassinate anyone. It's not in his character.
Which is why he hires a specialist which he can more than afford.
So Count Dooku asks Jango Fett to go kill Padme, but Jango Fett doesn't want to do it himself.
Okay, this is an argument I've heard a lot, which is why doesn't Jango Fett kill Padme? This is a decent argument, but one that is easily refuted. Why doesn't Michael Corleone personally kill everyone that wants him dead? Why doesn't the Joker kill all his victims personally? That's simple. Delegation of labor. And not to mention, there is far less risk in using a middleman or woman to carry out an illegal activity than to do it firsthand. Granted, Jango Fett would have been the best person to carry out the job, but that's the trade-off, isn't it? And the only reason Padme is alive is because of Palpatine to begin with. Jango Fett is a bounty hunter who runs his own bounty hunter syndicate. He ordered his subordinate to carry out the job, and he provided both the counsel and the means for her to get the job done. There, done. Simple as that. Next argument.
So he asks his shapeshifter friend to go kill Padme, but the shapeshifter sends a robot to go kill Padme.
Yep, and it's genius. If they're trying to assassinate Padme in her sleep, and the Senate Guard are fully aware that people want her dead, why would they attempt it themselves? The Senate Guard are expecting armed intruders or an armed ship to do a flyby or use explosives like the first assassination attempt. Jango Fett knows that security will be through the roof, so he says this. Though it is very clear that Jango didn't account for 2 trained Jedi being her personal bodyguards. So yes, Jango Fett isn't stupid like a lot of people make him out to be, and the plan is indeed very practical. Because if the Jedi weren't there, then Padme would have been dead by the morning, and the bounty hunters would have escaped without a trace.
And if you really want to be an asshole and get even more granular, the droid says, I'll send these little bugs to go kill Padme.
Seriously, dude, you have the most punchable voice I've ever heard.
Palpatine sends a man, who sends a man, who sends a shapeshifter, who sends a robot, who sends bugs to go kill Padme. And what's even funnier is that after they chase the robot and the shapeshifter, Jango has a chance to go kill Padme. But instead, he goes out of his way to assassinate the person he hired to assassinate Padme.
And the worst part about what you just said is how it proves what a fucking idiot you are. Seriously, did anyone who actually watched the prequels like this video? Let's rewind. Once the Jedi leave, Padme's right-hand woman and a swarm of Senate guards enter her room. They would likely be taking her to a more secure location or simply fortifying the residence and the space around it. So Jango can either try his luck at the worst possible time, or he can tie up any loose ends from a botched assassination attempt. On a fucking senator, mind you, which is a huge fucking felony, you jackass. And of course, he goes after his subordinate that the Jedi were pursuing and finished her off, ensuring that she would keep quiet and thus Jango escapes. It honestly depresses me how many brainless mice bought your agenda-driven bullshit on these movies. A movie that a 12-year-old can comfortably comprehend, but a grown-ass man apparently cannot.
Secretly genius these prequels are. Many original ideas these movies have.
You're goddamn right.
The prequels, while suffering from flaws, were most definitely Star Wars stories.
I love how that unironically encapsulates you when you come across a prequel fan and can't work your bandwagon bullshit on them, especially while trying to defend your precious Disney garbage. And that was part 3 of this Revenge of the Prequels episode, and yes, we have finally passed the halfway point. Huzzah! Thank you to everyone for tuning in, I hope you enjoyed it. Now, don't forget, there is 11 other episodes of this series. If you're going to watch them, the best way to do it is to start from episode 1 and work your way down the list, the playlist of which is on my channel. Before I go, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to all of my patrons. You guys are amazing and I appreciate your support very much. If you'd like to support the channel with a monthly donation, even if it's just $1 per month, the link to Patreon is in the description below. I'd also like to thank my YouTube members as well. Thank you to the Star Killers, the Captain Prices, and the Master Chiefs. For your continued support, I appreciate it very much. You can also get your official Revenge of the Prequels merchandise at the online store, which I have recently created. Wear your colors proud while supporting me at the same time. I hope you check it out. And don't forget to keep an eye out for the weekly podcast I have ongoing. Now, if you'd like to contact me, you can reach me on Twitter, or preferably you can contact me on the channel's Discord server. What Discord basically is an online community where followers of this channel congregate to talk about a range of different topics, ranging from Star Wars to video games, anime, and so on. I hope to see you on there, and chances are you'll make some friends along the way. Now, with that said, here's one more thank you for staying till the end of the video. You are a legend, and I'll see you next time.
The main thing is to protect these characters. make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them.
I sold them to the white slavers.
Star Wars The Phantom Menace was the most disappointing thing since...
Share your energy with me! The spirit box meeting! This is great.